The dean's voice cuts through the standing ovation like a blade. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Rourke may have received external coaching from an individual with professional credentials. Under conservatory policy, this constitutes a scholarship violation. The applause dies. The room freezes. In the back row, a man in a Hell's Angels vest stands. Silver beard, 61 years old. Boots that have covered more highway than most people will ever see. He walks toward the stage, and what happens next will shatter every assumption in that hall. Because the dangerous biker they've been judging all night carries a secret buried for 35 years. A secret that will prove real class isn't inherited. It's earned. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you were watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you believe people should never be judged by how they look, especially when they have earned everything they have, hit that like button and subscribe. Because not everyone who wears leather lacks talent. And not every institution that hangs diplomas on the wall understands what excellence looks like when it walks in from the outside. Now let me take you back to where this all started, 6 weeks before that recital, to the moment when everything changed. The rehearsal hall at Whitmore Conservatory smells like old money and older wood. Mahogany panels rise 30 feet to a coffered ceiling where chandeliers hang like frozen constellations. The Steinway grand piano sits center stage, black and gleaming under spotlights that cost more than most people's cars. In the third row, 3 men sit perfectly still. They wear leather vests, highway dust on their boots, patches sewn with thread and time. Hell's Angels, Ohio chapter. The man in the middle is 61 years old, silver beard trimmed close, hands the size of catcher's mitts folded in his lap. His name is Warren Rourke, but nobody who rides with him calls him Warren. They call him Ridge. He has sat in the back row of every recital, every showcase, every half-empty middle school auditorium for 18 years. Today, someone asked him to move forward, said the back rows were reserved for donors. He moved to the third row without argument. Around him, silk dresses whisper against velvet seats. Pearl necklaces catch the light. Men in tailored suits glance sideways then away. A woman 2 rows ahead leans to her husband. Her whisper carries farther than she thinks. Is that safe, having them here? The man beside Ridge is named Barrett, 38 years old, arms covered in ink. He shifts his weight, but doesn't turn around. On Ridge's other side sits Gunner, 45, built like a linebacker. His jaw works a piece of gum in slow, deliberate rhythm. Neither man speaks. They learned a long time ago that some rooms don't want to hear what you have to say. On stage, a young woman sits at the piano, 22 years old, dark hair pulled back in a simple knot. No jewelry, no expensive dress, just black pants and a white shirt that's been pressed carefully because it's the only white shirt she owns. Her name is Delaney Rourke. Everyone who loves her calls her Laney. She positions her hands over the keys. Her fingers are long calloused at the tips, working hands. She breathes once, twice. Then she begins. The music that fills the hall is Chopin. Nocturne in E-flat major. Safe. Beautiful. Exactly the kind of piece that doesn't ask too many questions or demand too many answers. She plays it perfectly. Note for note, exactly as it should be played. And that's the problem. 3 minutes into the piece, a voice cuts through the music like a scalpel through silk. Stop. The piano goes silent. Laney's hands freeze above the keys. At the far end of the hall near the entrance, a woman stands, 58 years old, perfectly tailored suit, hair that's never been out of place in 3 decades. Her name is Vivian Ashcroft, Dean of Performance Standards. She wears her title the way some people wear armor. Miss Rourke, Ashcroft says. Her voice carries effortlessly. She's had 40 years to learn how to fill a room. May I offer an observation? It's not really a question. Laney nods. Her throat feels tight. Ashcroft walks down the center aisle. Her heels click against hardwood. Each step measured, deliberate. You play technically well, Ashcroft says. Your timing is precise. Your dynamics are appropriate. She stops at the foot of the stage. But I wonder if we should discuss something more fundamental. The spring recital is not simply about technical proficiency. It's about presenting ourselves as the institution we are, as the caliber of musician we cultivate. Laney sits very still. I've been reviewing your background materials, Ashcroft continues, and I want to ensure that your home environment is supportive of the kind of disciplined culture classical training demands. The words hang in the air. Home environment. Ashcroft's eyes move past Laney, past the piano, to the third row, to the three men in leather. The room registers it. A shift. Like air pressure changing before a storm. Parents lean forward. Faculty members glance at each other. A woman in the second row touches her husband's arm. He nods. His eyes never leave the bikers. In the third row, Ridge sits absolutely motionless. He has a quality that people who know him have mentioned. When he goes still, it's not passive. It's the stillness of a predator. The kind that makes you remember that silence can carry weight. Gunner's jaw stops moving. Barrett's hands rest flat on his thighs. I simply want to ensure, Ashcroft says, her voice gentle now, the way people speak when they're being cruel but want plausible deniability, that you have the support structure necessary to succeed here at Whitmore. Classical music requires a certain foundation, a certain understanding of culture and refinement that isn't always present in every household. The sentence trails off. It doesn't need to be finished. Everyone in the room knows exactly what she means. Laney's face doesn't change, but her hands, still hovering above the keys, curl slightly, fingernails pressing into palms. "Yes, ma'am," she says. Her voice is steady. "I understand." "Wonderful," Ashcroft smiles. "Then let's discuss your piece selection for the spring recital. I think the Chopin you're working on is an excellent choice. Accessible, well within your technical range. It showcases competence without overreaching." She pauses. "I noticed on your preliminary submission that you'd originally selected Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto." The room seems to inhale. The Rachmaninoff Third, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the entire classical repertoire. A piece that destroys professional pianists. A piece that requires not just skill, but something else. Something harder to define. "I would strongly encourage you to stay with the Chopin," Ashcroft says. "The Rachmaninoff is ambitious, perhaps too ambitious for a first-year scholarship student. I wouldn't want to see you embarrass yourself or the institution." Laney looks down at the keys. "Yes, ma'am," she says again. "Excellent. I'm so glad we could have this conversation." Ashcroft turns, walks back up the aisle. Her heels click, click, click. The rehearsal continues, but something in the room has shifted. In the third row, Ridge unfolds his hands, stands, walks out through the side exit without looking back. Barrett and Gunner follow. Nobody tries to stop them. Outside, the October air is cold, the kind of cold that hasn't decided yet if it's autumn or winter. Ridge walks to his bike, a 1998 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, black, chrome, built to last. He doesn't put his helmet on yet. He just stands there. Barrett lights a cigarette, doesn't offer one. He knows Ridge quit 15 years ago. "That was some bullshit," Barrett says. Ridge doesn't answer. Gunner leans against his own bike. A Road King, older than Barrett's, louder. "You want us to?" "No," Ridge says. His voice is quiet, flat. "She's got to fight her own battles," he says. "Always has. Always will." "Even when they're rigged?" Barrett asks. Ridge looks at him. His eyes are gray, the kind of gray that's seen things and decided not to talk about them. "Especially then," Ridge says. He puts his helmet on, starts the engine. The sound is thunder. Delaney Rourke grew up above a mechanic's garage in a town called Millbrook, Ohio, population 3,000 and dropping. The kind of place where the biggest event of the year is the 4th of July parade, and the factory closing made the national news for about 6 minutes. The garage belonged to her father, Michael Rourke. Good man, hard worker, could fix any engine ever made, and most engines that hadn't been invented yet. He died when Laney was 4 years old. Car accident. Wrong place, wrong time. Drunk driver ran a red light doing 70. Laney doesn't remember much about him, just fragments. The smell of motor oil and coffee, big hands lifting her onto his shoulders, a laugh that filled rooms. What she remembers most is the piano. Her father kept an old upright in the corner of the garage office. Second hand, maybe third hand. 2 ivory keys missing. G above middle C and the B flat 2 octaves up. Nobody knew why he had it. He didn't play. But after he died, Ridge brought Laney to live with him. Brought the piano too. Your old man wanted you to have it, Ridge said. That was all he said. Lainey taught herself to play on that broken piano. Started when she was 5. No lessons, no teacher, just YouTube videos and library books and 10,000 hours of trial and error. She learned to hear what was missing, the G that wasn't there, the B flat that didn't sound. She learned to compensate, to adjust, to play pieces that avoided those notes or to rewrite the fingering so the melody still worked. By the time she was 12, she could play Beethoven. By 15, she was playing Chopin. By 17, she was good enough that her high school music teacher drove 3 hours to Columbus to make her audition for the Whitmore Conservatory Scholarship Program. You're wasting your talent here, the teacher said. You need real training. Lainey got the scholarship. Full ride, room and board, everything covered. Ridge made every tuition payment on time anyway, sent money for books, for piano time, for whatever she needed. He never missed a payment, just like he never missed a recital. 18 years. From elementary school showcases where 5-year-olds banged on xylophones to middle school talent shows to high school competitions, always in the back row, always with his hands folded in his lap, always silent. He never told her she was good. He never told her she wasn't. He just showed up. That night, Lainey sits in her apartment and stares at the keyboard in front of her. It's not the old upright from the garage. That piano is back at Ridge's house, too heavy and too broken to move again. This is a digital keyboard. Weighted keys, decent sound. It cost $800. Ridge bought it the day she got her acceptance letter. Can't practice at the conservatory all the time, he said. Need one here too. The Chopin is sitting on the music stand in front of her. She's been staring at it for 20 minutes. She hasn't played a single note. Her phone buzzes, a text from Ridge. You good? She types back. Yeah. You 3 dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Always, she sets the phone down. She thinks about Vivian and Ashcroft, about silk dresses and pearl necklaces, about the way people's eyes had moved to Ridge like he was something dangerous, something that didn't belong, about the word overreaching. She thinks about her father, about the piano with the missing keys, about learning to play around the broken parts, about Ridge, who showed up to every single performance for 18 years and never once asked for credit or recognition. She thinks about the Rachmaninoff Third, the piece she's wanted to play since she first heard it when she was 16, the piece that made her cry the first time she listened to it all the way through, the piece that scared her and thrilled her and made her want to be better than she was, the piece Ashcroft just told her was too ambitious. Too ambitious. Translation: you don't belong here. You're not like the others. Stay in your lane. Lainey's hands curl into fists. She sits there for another 10 minutes. Then she opens her laptop, pulls up the Rachmaninoff score, the real one, not the simplified version, not the student arrangement, the full concerto. She downloads it, prints it, all 73 pages. Tomorrow she'll tell Ashcroft she's keeping the Chopin. She'll lie, and she'll practice the Rachmaninoff in secret. The apartment Lainey rents is 800 square feet, 1 bedroom, kitchen the size of a closet, bathroom with a shower that only works if you hit the faucet in exactly the right spot. It costs $900 a month. Ridge pays $700 of it. She works part-time at a coffee shop near campus for the rest. Tips and minimum wage. Enough to cover food and the electric bill. The walls are thin. She can hear her neighbor's television through the drywall. Can hear the couple upstairs fighting at 2 in the morning. Can hear the guy next door playing Call of Duty until dawn. But the building allows musical instruments. That's why she picked it. That night she practices the Rachmaninoff until her hands cramp. The opening is brutal. Right hand runs that feel like ice picks. Left hand jumps that require you to stretch further than human fingers should be able to stretch. She plays the first page 40 times. By the 40th time, her fingers are moving right. Muscle memory starting to form. The notes starting to feel less like an assault course and more like a conversation. She doesn't notice when her neighbor starts pounding on the wall. She doesn't notice when it's past midnight. She just plays. 3 days later, Ridge shows up at her apartment. He doesn't call first. He never does. Just knocks twice and walks in. Hey, Gramps, Lainey says. She's at the keyboard, has been for 4 hours. Hey, kiddo. Ridge sets a paper bag on the counter. Groceries. He does this sometimes. Shows up with food, never asks if she needs it, just leaves it there. Eggs, bread, peanut butter, coffee, the good kind. You eat today, he asks. Yeah. She's lying. She had coffee for breakfast, coffee for lunch. She'll have coffee for dinner if she doesn't stop soon. Ridge knows she's lying. He doesn't call her on it. He just starts making eggs. Lainey keeps playing Chopin, the Nocturne, the safe piece, the piece Ashcroft wants her to play. Ridge cooks. The smell of butter and eggs fills the small apartment. How's it going? He asks. Fine. School good? Yeah. He plates the eggs, sets one in front of her, takes the other to the couch. Lainey stops playing, eats. They don't talk. This is how it's been for 18 years. Comfortable silence. Neither of them needs to fill the air with words. After a while, Ridge stands, walks to the sink, washes the dishes. He's on his way out when it happens. He walks past the keyboard, stops, looks down at the keys. Something crosses his face, fast, like a shadow. He reaches out, one hand, index finger extended. He presses middle C. The note sounds wrong, just slightly wrong, maybe 5 cents flat, maybe less. The kind of wrong that most people wouldn't notice, that most people wouldn't hear. Ridge hears it, he tilts his head, listening. Then without looking at Lainey, without saying a word, he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a Swiss Army knife, opens the smallest blade, kneels down, opens the access panel on the back of the keyboard. Lainey stands up, walks over. Gramps, what are you? Ridge doesn't answer. His hands move inside the keyboard. Precise, confident. He adjusts something, some internal mechanism, something Lainey didn't even know could be adjusted. He presses middle C again. Perfect. He checks the next note. D flat. He adjusts it. E, perfect. F sharp. He adjusts it. He moves through the entire keyboard, tuning each note by ear. No electronic tuner, no reference pitch. Just his ear and his hands and muscle memory that runs so deep it's automatic. 3 minutes later, every note is perfect. He closes the access panel, stands, folds the knife, puts it back into his pocket. Lainey is staring at him. Gramps, she says slowly, how did you do that? Ridge looks at the keyboard, his face is carefully blank. It was out of tune. I know. But how did you know? How did you know exactly which notes were wrong? How did you know how to fix them? Ridge doesn't answer. He heads for the door. Gramps, he stops, his hand on the doorknob. How do you know how to tune a piano? The silence stretches. Outside a car drives past. Music thumping, bass rattling windows. Inside, Ridge stands very still. Used to do some work on them, he says finally. Long time ago. What kind of work? Doesn't matter. It matters to me. Ridge opens the door. Eat something, he says. You're too skinny. He leaves. The door closes. Lainey stands in the middle of her apartment, staring at the keyboard. She walks over, sits down, plays a scale. Every note perfect. Tuned by ear. By a man who supposedly just used to do some work on them. She sits there for a long time thinking. The next morning, Lainey has a meeting with Dean Ashcroft. It's scheduled for 9 a.m. office hours, private. Ashcroft's office is on the 3rd floor of the conservatory's main building. Original hardwood, windows that overlook the quad, bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes on music theory and composition. A Steinway upright sits in the corner, perfectly tuned, probably never played. Ashcroft sits behind a desk that's older than most of the students. Mahogany, carved edges. Lainey sits in the chair across from her. Miss Rourke, Ashcroft says. She smiles. It doesn't reach her eyes. Thank you for coming. Of course. I wanted to follow up on our conversation from the rehearsal about your piece selection. The Chopin. Yes, I think it's an excellent choice. Well within your abilities. It will showcase your technical foundation without putting undue strain on your performance. Lainey nods. I've been thinking about it, Lainey says carefully. Oh, and I think I'd like to keep the Rachmaninoff. The smile doesn't falter. But something behind Ashcroft's eyes sharpens. The Rachmaninoff third. Yes, ma'am. Miss Rourke, I want to be very clear with you. That piece is extraordinarily difficult. Professional pianists train for years before attempting it. Many never do. It requires not just technical skill, but a deep understanding of classical tradition, a foundation that typically comes from years of formal training in the right environment. I understand. I'm not sure you do. Ashcroft leans forward. Her voice is still gentle, still kind. This is your first year on full scholarship. Your performance at the spring recital will be reviewed by the faculty committee. It will determine whether your scholarship continues. If you attempt a piece of that caliber and fail publicly, she lets the sentence hang. It could have consequences. What kind of consequences? Academic, professional? Your entire future at this institution could be affected by one poor performance. I would hate to see that happen to you. Lainey sits very still. Are you saying I'm not allowed to play the Rachmaninoff? Of course not. You're allowed to play whatever you choose. I'm simply offering guidance. As someone who has been in this field for 30 years, as someone who wants to see you succeed. The word succeed sounds like a threat. I'm recommending, Ashcroft continues, that you choose something more appropriate to your current level of development, something that reflects realistic expectations given your background and training. My background? Yes. The word sits between them. You mean because I didn't grow up going to music camps and private lessons? Ashcroft's smile tightens. I mean that classical music has a certain cultural context, a certain tradition. That tradition is built on years of formal study, on being raised in an environment where excellence is not just taught, but lived. She pauses. I saw your grandfather at the rehearsal. There it is. He seems like an interesting man. He is. But I have to wonder if that kind of environment is truly conducive to the kind of discipline and refinement that classical music demands. Lainey's hands are in her lap, hidden under the desk. Her fingernails are digging into her palms. My grandfather raised me, she says. Her voice is level. He worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over my head. He never missed a single performance in 18 years. He taught me that you don't quit just because something is hard. I'm sure he did his best, Ashcroft says, but best intentions don't always translate to the kind of cultural foundation necessary for success at this level. She stands. Think about what I've said. You have until Friday to submit your final piece selection. Choose wisely. The meeting is over. Lainey walks out. She makes it to the hallway before her hands start shaking. She makes it to the bathroom before the rage hits. No matter how well she plays, no matter how well she plays, no matter how hard she works, she will always be the girl from the garage, the scholarship kid, the charity case, unless she proves them wrong. She walks back to her apartment, sits at the keyboard, opens the Rachmaninoff score, and she practices. That Friday, she submits her piece selection. Chopin Nocturne in E-flat major. Safe, appropriate, exactly what Ashcroft wanted. That night, she practices the Rachmaninoff until 2 in the morning. 2 weeks pass. Lainey maintains the lie. In official rehearsals, she plays the Chopin. Perfect technique, no mistakes. Exactly what she's supposed to do. In her apartment alone, she practices the Rachmaninoff, 6 hours a day, sometimes 8. Her hands develop calluses on top of calluses. Her wrists ache. Her back hurts from sitting at the bench for so long. She doesn't stop. Ridge comes by twice, brings groceries, doesn't stay long. He doesn't ask about the piano. She doesn't tell him. But something has shifted between them. A distance. A question that hasn't been asked yet. One night Ridge is leaving after dropping off food. He's almost to the door when Lainey speaks. Gramps, he turns. That thing you did with the piano, tuning it. Yeah. Where did you learn that? Ridge's face is carefully neutral. Picked it up somewhere. Where? Doesn't matter. It does to me. He looks at her for a long moment. It was a long time ago, kiddo. Ancient history. So tell me. Nothing to tell. You tuned a keyboard perfectly by ear in 3 minutes. That's not nothing. Ridge's jaw tightens. I used to do some work with instruments. Back before you were born. It's not important. What kind of work? Lainey, what kind of work, Gramps? The silence stretches. Finally, Ridge sighs. I used to play. The words land like stones in still water. You played piano. Yeah. How much enough? Enough to tune one by ear, enough to know exactly which notes were wrong without testing them. Ridge doesn't answer. That's not just enough, Laney says. That's years of training. That's professional level. It was a long time ago. How long? 35 years. Laney does the math. 35 years ago, Ridge would have been 26. Where did you learn? Ridge looks at the door, like he's calculating if he can make it there before she asks the next question. He can't. Conservatory, he says quietly. The word hits like a fist. What conservatory? Ridge doesn't answer. Laney stands, walks to her closet. She's been looking for something for the past week, ever since Ridge tuned her keyboard. Something she half remembered from when she was a kid. She opens the box of Ridge's things that he brought when she moved in. Old photographs, military medals, random objects from a life lived in the margins. At the bottom, wrapped in an old t-shirt, she finds it. A brass metronome. Old, heavy, solid. Engraved on the base, Whitmore Conservatory, 1987. Warren Rourke, summa cum laude. Laney turns. Ridge is standing in the doorway. His face is stone. You went to Whitmore, Laney says. Ridge doesn't move. You graduated summa cum laude, top of your class. Still nothing. You're not just some guy who used to play piano. You were... I was a student, Ridge says. His voice is flat. 35 years ago, it's not who I am now. Why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. It matters to me. Ridge walks forward, takes the metronome from her hands, looks at it. His thumb runs over the engraving. I was a different person then, he says. That person doesn't exist anymore. What happened? Life. That's not an answer. Ridge sets the metronome down on the counter. I studied piano. I was good. I graduated. I was going to have a career. And it didn't work out. Why, wow? Ridge looks at her. His eyes are gray and tired and carrying weight that Laney has never seen before. Because sometimes you have to choose between what you want and what matters. What does that mean? It means I made a choice a long time ago, and I'd make it again. What choice? Ridge is silent for a long moment. I can't talk about this right now, he says finally. Gramps. I said I can't. He heads for the door. If you knew music, Laney says, if you were that good, then you know what I'm up against. You know what they're doing to me. Ridge stops, his hand on the doorknob. Ashcroft told me I'm not good enough for the Rachmaninoff. She told me I should stay in my lane, that people like us don't have the right foundation. Ridge's shoulders tighten. She looked at you in that rehearsal hall and decided I wasn't worth taking seriously. Because of where I come from. Because of who raised me. Ridge turns, slowly. What are you playing at the recital, he asks. Officially Chopin. Officially. Laney meets his eyes. I'm going to play the Rachmaninoff. I'm going to prove her wrong. Ridge stares at her. You submit the Chopin to poem, yes. And you're planning to change it the night of yes. That's stupid, reckless career suicide. Yeah. I know, but I'm doing it anyway. Ridge runs a hand through his beard. Why? Because they think I'm not good enough. Because they look at you and see trash. Because I'm tired of being told to stay in my lane. She takes a step forward. And because if you were good enough to graduate summa cum laude from Whitmore, then you can teach me how to play that piece. Ridge goes very still. Laney. You know the Rachmaninoff third. He doesn't answer, which is an answer. You do. I can see it on your face. You know it. Knowing a piece and teaching it are different things. Then teach me, please. I haven't played in 35 years. You tuned my keyboard in 3 minutes without thinking about it. You haven't forgotten. Ridge looks at the metronome sitting on the counter, at the engraving that used to be his name. If I help you and you fail, Ashcroft will pull your scholarship. If I don't try, I'll never know if I could have done it. That's not logic. That's pride. Maybe, but it's my pride and my choice. Ridge is quiet for a very long time. Finally, he walks to the keyboard, sits down on the bench, his hands hover over the keys. 35 years since he's played. 35 years since he walked away. He sets his fingers on the keys, and he plays. Not the Rachmaninoff, something simpler. Chopin, the same nocturne Laney has been practicing. But the way he plays it, the sound that comes out of that keyboard, it's not technical, it's not precise, it's alive. Every note carrying weight, every phrase breathing, the kind of playing that doesn't just demonstrate skill, it demonstrates understanding. He plays for maybe 90 seconds, then stops. His hands rest on the keys. "That's who you were," Laney says softly. Ridge doesn't look at her. "That's who I was." "Why did you stop?" "I had to." "Why what a?" Ridge stands, walks to the door. "I'll be here tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. If you're serious about this, we start then." He opens the door. "And Laney, yeah. If we do this, we do it right. No shortcuts, no excuses. You work harder than you've ever worked in your life." "I can do that. We'll see." He leaves. Laney stands in her apartment and looks at the metronome. Warren Rourke, summa cum laude. 1987, the man who raised her. The man who never told her he could play piano at a level that made professionals sound like amateurs. The man with secrets buried so deep she's just now starting to uncover them. She picks up the metronome, sets it on top of the keyboard. Tomorrow the real work begins. But tonight she has questions. And somewhere in Ridge's past there are answers. The next night Ridge arrives at 7 o'clock exactly. He doesn't knock, just opens the door and walks in carrying a worn leather satchel. Laney is already at the keyboard, has been for 2 hours. Her hands are warmed up. Her mind is ready. Ridge sets the satchel on the counter, unzips it, pulls out sheet music. Old, the pages yellowed with age, corners bent from use. Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto, number 3 in D minor. The original score, not a reprint, not a digital copy, the actual music from 1987. He sets it on the stand. "We're not using the simplified version," he says. "If you're going to do this, you do it right." Laney looks at the score. The notes are dense, complex. There are pencil marks in the margins, fingering notations, tempo adjustments. Ridge's handwriting from 35 years ago. "Sit," he says. She sits. He stands beside the keyboard, arms crossed. "Play the opening, first 16 measures." Laney positions her hands, breathes, begins. The opening of the Rachmaninoff third is deceptive. It sounds simple, almost gentle, a melody that feels like it's wandering, searching for something. But underneath that simplicity is a brutal technical demand. The left hand jumps, the right hand runs. The coordination required is surgical. Laney plays 8 measures before Ridge stops her. Again, she plays. He stops her at measure 6. Again, she plays. He stops her at measure 4. Your third finger is late on the D. You're anticipating the jump. Don't anticipate. Trust your hand to know where it's going. She plays again. Again, and again, and again. By the 15th time, she's playing it correctly. The muscle memory forming. The fingers learning the shape of the phrase. Ridge nods once. Good. Next is 16 measures. They work for 3 hours. Ridge's teaching style is nothing like what Laney has experienced at Whitmore. At the conservatory, professors use careful language. They suggest, they guide, they encourage. Ridge doesn't do any of that. His vocabulary has 3 words. Again, slower, listen. When she plays something wrong, he doesn't explain why it's wrong. He just makes her do it again and again until her hands understand what her brain is trying to tell them. When she gets frustrated, he doesn't comfort her. He just waits. When she wants to take a break, he checks his watch, says they have 45 minutes left in the session. No shortcuts, no excuses. At 10 o'clock, he closes the score. That's enough for tonight. Laney's hands are cramping. Her wrists ache. She played maybe 3 pages. Less than 2 minutes of music. That's it. That's it. You push too hard the first night, you'll hurt yourself. Can't practice with injured hands. He packs the score back into the satchel. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Be warmed up when I get here. He leaves. Laney sits at the keyboard and stares at her hands. 3 hours of work, 2 minutes of music. At this rate, it'll take months to learn the entire concerto. She has 6 weeks. The pattern establishes itself quickly. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Ridge arrives exactly on time. Never early, never late. They work through the concerto measure by measure, page by page. No session covers more than a few minutes of music. But every session drills those minutes until they're perfect. Not good. Perfect. Ridge's standards are brutal. If she's off by even a 16th note, they start over. If her dynamics are wrong, they start over. If the phrase doesn't breathe the way it should, they start over. He never raises his voice. He never gets angry. He just makes her do it again. Lainey practices on her own time too. 8 hours a day, sometimes 10. She wakes up at 6 a.m. Practices for 2 hours before class. Between classes, she books practice rooms at the conservatory. Another 3 hours. After dinner, she practices at home until Ridge arrives. After he leaves, she practices another hour. Her hands develop new calluses. The tips of her fingers harden. Her wrists ache constantly. She buys a wrist brace, wears it between sessions. She starts icing her hands at night, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. She stops going out, stops seeing friends. Her entire life becomes the keyboard and the score and the relentless pursuit of perfection. 2 weeks in, she hits a wall. It's a Friday night. They're working on the third movement, the hardest section of the entire concerto. The passage requires both hands to play rapid parallel runs, the kind of technique that takes years to develop. Lainey has been working on it for an hour. She can't get it. Every time she plays it, something goes wrong. The rhythm slips. The notes blur. Her hands can't move it fast enough. Again, Ridge says. She plays. Fails. Again. She plays. Fails. Again. She plays. Her left hand cramps. The notes collapse into noise. She stops, slams her hands down on the keys. I can't do this. Ridge doesn't react. I can't. It's too fast. My hands aren't fast enough. They are. They're not. I've been playing this for an hour and it's not getting better. Because you're thinking too much. I have to think. If I don't think, I'll play it wrong. If you keep thinking, you'll never play it right. Lainey turns to look at him. That doesn't make sense. Ridge walks to the keyboard, sits down beside her. Play it as fast as you can think, he says. What happens? I mess up. Right, because your brain is slower than your hands. Your brain processes information sequentially. One note, then the next, then the next. But this passage doesn't work that way. It's not a sequence. It's a shape. He positions his hands over the keys. Stop thinking about individual notes. Think about the shape of the phrase, the arc of it, the feeling. He plays the passage. His hands move so fast they blur. But the notes are clean, perfect, every single one. He makes it look effortless. How did you do that? 30,000 repetitions? Maybe more. I played this passage so many times that my hands learned it. My brain stopped being involved. He stands. You've played it maybe 500 times. You need 5,000 more, and you don't have time for that. So you need to stop trying to think your way through it and start feeling your way through it. I don't know how to do that. Yes, you do. You learn to play on a piano with missing keys. You learn to hear what wasn't there and compensate. You didn't think about it. You felt it. He taps her forehead. Get out of here. Then her chest. Get in here. Lainey looks at the keys. She positions her hands. She closes her eyes. And she plays. She doesn't think about the notes. Doesn't think about the rhythm. Doesn't think about technique. She just feels the shape of the phrase. The arc. The momentum. Her hands move. And the passage plays. Not perfectly, but better. She opens her eyes. Ridge nods. Again. After that night, something shifts. Lainey stops trying to intellectualize the music. Stops trying to force her hands to do what her brain thinks they should do. She starts trusting the muscle memory, trusting the repetition. Playing becomes less like solving a math problem and more like speaking a language. The notes flow, the phrases breathe. She's not there yet, not even close. But she's moving in the right direction. 3 weeks and Barrett shows up. It's a Wednesday night. Lainey is mid-session with Ridge, working on the second movement, the slow section, the part that requires emotional depth rather than technical pyrotechnics. There's a knock at the door. Ridge doesn't stop, doesn't look up. It's open. The door opens. Barrett walks in. He's carrying a paper bag, coffee cups visible at the top. He sets it on the counter, doesn't say anything, just leans against the wall and listens. Laney keeps playing. The second movement of the Rachmaninoff third is haunting, melancholic. It sounds like grief, like memory, like something beautiful that's been lost and can never be recovered. She plays for maybe 5 minutes. When she finishes, Barrett is still standing there, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Ridge nods. Better, you're starting to feel it. But you're holding back in measure 32. The crescendo needs to build more. If I build it more, I'll overpower the melody. You won't. Trust yourself. Laney plays it again, pushes the crescendo. Ridge is right. The melody doesn't get lost. It transforms, becomes something larger. When she finishes, Barrett speaks. That was beautiful. Laney turns. She'd almost forgotten he was there. Thanks. I mean it. I've heard professionals play that piece. You're better than half of them. Ridge stands, walks to the coffee, takes a cup. Black. She's getting there. How long you been working on this? Barrett asked Laney. 3 weeks. Bullshit. It's true, see. Barrett looks at Ridge. You teaching her? Yeah. Every night, 4 nights a week. Barrett is quiet for a moment. Then he walks to the couch, sits down. You mind if I stay? Ridge glances at Laney. She shrugs. Fine by me, she says. Barrett stays for the rest of the session. Doesn't talk. Doesn't interrupt. Just sits and listens. When Ridge calls time at 10 o'clock, Barrett stands. You got a minute? He asks Laney. Sure. Ridge packs up his satchel, gives Barrett a look. Some unspoken communication. Barrett nods. Ridge leaves. Barrett and Laney stand in the small apartment. You want to know why I was listening? Barrett says. It's not a question. Okay. I played cello, long time ago. Different conservatory, different city, but same kind of place. Laney sits on the arm of the couch. What happened? I was good, not Ridge good, but good enough to have a shot. I got accepted to a program, full scholarship, had a teacher who believed in me. He pauses. Then I got deployed, Iraq, 2006. I was there for 16 months. His voice is flat, factual. The way people talk about trauma when they have told the story enough times that it's lost its emotional charge. When I came back, I couldn't play anymore. Couldn't focus. Couldn't sit still long enough to practice. Had nightmares, panic attacks, the whole PTSD package. I'm sorry. Don't be, it is what it is. He looks at the keyboard. I tried to go back to school, lasted 6 weeks. Every time I sat down with the cello, my hands would shake. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in Fallujah. How did you meet Ridge? He found me, 2008. I was living in a shelter, drinking too much, fighting too much, going nowhere. Barrett's jaw tightens. He walked into the shelter one day, didn't say much, just asked if I wanted a job. Mechanic work, nothing fancy. I said yes because I had nothing else. And he gave me a place to stay, gave me work, didn't ask questions, didn't push, just let me exist until I figured out how to be human again. He meets Laney's eyes. Ridge saved my life, him and the brothers. They gave me something to belong to when I didn't belong anywhere. Laney doesn't know what to say. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something. Ridge doesn't do this for just anyone. Teaching you, spending 4 nights a week here, opening up that part of himself he buried 35 years ago. Barrett steps forward. He's doing it because you're his family, because you matter to him more than anything else in this world, more than the pain of remembering what he gave up, more than the fear of failing you. I know that. Do you? Because watching you play tonight, I saw something. You're carrying his legacy, whether you know it or not, whether he's told you or not. He hasn't told me much. He won't, that's not who he is. But I've known him for 16 years, and I've never seen him touch a piano, not once, until 3 weeks ago when he decided to teach you. Barrett walks to the door. Don't waste it. He leaves. Laney sits in the silence. The coffee Barrett brought is still on the counter. She opens the bag. 3 cups, one for her, one for Ridge, one for Barrett. He'd planned to stay the whole time. She drinks her coffee and thinks about what Barrett said, about Ridge saving him, about belonging, about legacy. 4 weeks in, Dean Vivian Ashcroft makes a discovery. She's in her office, late afternoon, going through old conservatory archives for a project on distinguished alumni. The archives are stored in the basement, boxes and boxes of records dating back to 1923 when Whitmore was founded. She's looking for something specific, a photo from the 1980s, a particular graduating class. She finds it in a box labeled 1987 to 1990. The photo is black and white, a group of students standing in front of the conservatory's main building. Graduation day, caps and gowns, proud smiles. She scans the faces and stops. Third row, fourth person from the left, a young man, maybe 25 years old, clean cut, no beard, shorter hair, but the eyes are unmistakable. Gray, intense, looking directly at the camera. Warren Rourke, the biker, the Hell's Angel, the man who sat in the third row and made her entire faculty uncomfortable. She flips the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, Whitmore Conservatory Class of 1987. Summa cum laude recipients, Warren Rourke piano, Jennifer Chang violin, David Moss composition. Ashcroft stares at the name. Warren Rourke. She sets the photo down, opens her laptop, searches the conservatory database. Warren Rourke, enrolled 1983, graduated 1987, full scholarship, academic honors, performance awards. She clicks through his file. Faculty notes from 1985. Warren demonstrates exceptional technical ability and profound musical sensitivity. Recommend advanced placement. Faculty notes from 1986. Warren's interpretation of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto was the finest student performance I have witnessed in 23 years of teaching. Recommends special consideration for Berlin Philharmonic Young Artist Program. Faculty notes from 1987. Warren accepted to Berlin Philharmonic. Tour begins September 1989. This young man has a limitless future. Ashcroft sits back in her chair. Warren Rourke, the man in leather and highway dust. The man who looked dangerous and out of place. Once-in-a-generation talent. Berlin Philharmonic. She keeps searching, finds a newspaper clipping from 1989. Local paper, small article. Warren Rourke, Whitmore Conservatory graduate and rising star in classical piano, has withdrawn from his scheduled European tour with the Berlin Philharmonic, citing personal reasons. The conservatory wishes him well in his future endeavors. That's it. No explanation, no follow-up. He just vanished. Ashcroft picks up her phone, calls the registrar. This is Dean Ashcroft. I need you to pull a file for me. Student name Delaney Rourke. She waits. Yes, I know she's current enrollment at. I want to see her admission file, specifically the family information section. A pause. Guardian listed as Warren Rourke. Relationship grandfather. She hangs up. Warren Rourke isn't just some biker who happened to raise a talented granddaughter. He's a Whitmore graduate, a former prodigy, a man who walked away from one of the most prestigious opportunities in classical music. And now he's teaching Delaney. External instruction from a former professional, undisclosed. That's a violation, clear, unambiguous. Ashcroft closes the laptop. She thinks about the rules, about standards, about maintaining the integrity of the program. She thinks about Delaney Rourke playing Chopin in rehearsal. Safe, controlled, exactly what she's supposed to play. And she thinks about Warren Rourke, about the man who was good enough for Berlin, who gave it up for reasons the archive doesn't explain. She makes a decision. The next day, Ridge is leaving the grocery store when Ashcroft approaches him. She's in the parking lot, standing beside a Mercedes, waiting. Ridge sees her, doesn't change his pace, just walks to his bike and starts loading groceries into the saddlebag. Mr. Rourke, he doesn't turn around. Can I have a moment of your time? Busy. This won't take long. Ridge secures the last bag, straightens, turns. Ashcroft stands 10 feet away, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. I've been doing some research, she says, about Whitmore's distinguished alumni. Ridge doesn't respond. I found your name. Class of 1987, summa cum laude, Berlin Philharmonic. Still nothing. You were quite accomplished. Was is the right word? What happened? Why did you leave the tour? Personal reasons. The archive said as much, but it didn't explain what those reasons were. Ridge crosses his arms. That's because they're personal. Ashcroft takes a step forward. Are you coaching your granddaughter? There it is. Ridge's expression doesn't change. I'm her grandfather. Sometimes I help her practice. That's coaching. From a former professional, that constitutes external instruction. I'm family. Family help isn't against the rules. It is if that family member has professional credentials that provide an unfair advantage. Ridge is very still. You want to define helping my granddaughter with her homework as an unfair advantage. That's on you. It's not homework. It's a conservatory recital. There are rules. And I'm not breaking them. I'm a grandfather helping his granddaughter. That's all. Ashcroft's lips thin. Let me be clear, Mr. Rourke. I will be watching Delaney's performance very carefully. If there is any indication that she has received professional coaching that wasn't disclosed and approved, I will initiate a formal review. And that review could result in the termination of her scholarship. Ridge takes a step forward, not aggressive, not threatening, just closing distance. Let me be clear, Dean Ashcroft. My granddaughter earned her place here. She's worked harder than any student you have. She's more talented than half your faculty. His voice is quiet, flat. And if you try to take her scholarship because you're threatened by where she comes from, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why. Ashcroft's composure slips, just for a second. Are you threatening me? I'm stating a fact. You look at her and see someone who doesn't belong. You look at me and see the same thing. But we both earned the right to be here. Her through talent, me through history. He steps back. You want to come after her, you'd better have a real reason. Not just classist bullshit dressed up as policy. He gets on his bike, starts the engine. Have a nice day, Dean. He rides away. Ashcroft stands in the parking lot. Her hands are shaking. That night, Laney is practicing when Ridge arrives. She can tell the something is wrong immediately. His jaw is tight. His movements are sharp. What happened? She asks. Nothing. Let's work. Gramps. I said let's work. They work for an hour in near silence. Ridge's corrections are sharper than usual, less patient. Finally, Laney stops. What's going on? Ridge is quiet for a long moment. Ashcroft knows. Knows what? That I went to Whitmore. That I'm teaching you. Laney's stomach drops. How? She found old records. Put it together. What did she say? That if you show signs of professional coaching at the recital, she'll pull your scholarship. The words land like stones. Laney sits very still. So that's it then. We stop. No. Gramps, if she pulls my scholarship, she won't. You don't know that. Ridge walks to the window, looks out at the street. When I was your age, I thought music was everything. I thought if I could just play well enough, be good enough, that would be enough. He turns. And then life showed me that some things matter more than music. Some things matter more than career or recognition or proving yourself to people who've already decided you're not worth their time. What are you saying? I'm saying that you're going to play that recital. You're going to play the Rachmaninoff, and you're going to be brilliant. And if Ashcroft, let me worry about Ashcroft. That's not fair to you. Ridge walks to the keyboard, sits down. You want to know why I really quit music? Laney nods. Ridge's hands rest on the keys, not playing, just touching. I had a sister, Diane, 2 years younger than me. She had a son, Michael, your father. Laney goes very still. November 1989, 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Berlin. Diane was driving home from work. Drunk driver ran a red light. Killed her instantly. His voice is steady, but there's something underneath it. Something that's been there for 35 years. Michael was 6 years old. No father. Mother dead. No other family except me. So you stayed. So I stayed. Walked away from the tour. From the career. From everything. And I raised him. Laney's throat is tight. He grew up good, smart, kind, became a mechanic, met your mother, Had you. Ridge looks at her. And then he died. Same way Diane did. Wrong place, wrong time, drunk driver. I know. Do you, because I need you to understand something. I gave up music twice. Once for your father, once for you, and I would make the same choice every single time. He stands. Music is what I loved, but you and your father, you're what I chose. And choice always matters more than love. Lainey can't speak. So when I say you're going to play that recital, I mean it. Because you're not just playing for yourself. You're playing for your father, for Diane, for everyone who got told they weren't good enough because of where they came from. He picks up his satchel. And you're playing for me, for the part of me that walked away and never looked back until now. He heads for the door. Same time Friday. We've got 2 weeks left. We're going to use them. He leaves. Lainey sits in the empty apartment. Ridge gave up music for her arbiter, then gave it up again for her. 35 years of silence. 35 years of carrying that weight. And now he's breaking that silence. Opening that wound. Remembering what he lost. For her. She walks to the keyboard. Sits down. Plays the second movement. The sad section. The part that sounds like grief. And for the first time, she understands what it really means. The final 2 weeks blur together. Lainey practices 8 hours a day, 10 on weekends. Her hands cramp, her wrists ache. She develops tendinitis in her right thumb, has to ice it every night. She stops eating regular meals, lives on coffee and protein bars and whatever Ridge brings when he shows up. She stops sleeping normal hours, practices until 2 a.m., wakes up at 6, does it again. The people in her life notice. Her professors ask if she's okay. Her friends stop texting after she ignores them for the 10th time. The barista at the coffee shop asks if she's sick. She's not sick. She's obsessed. Barrett and Gunnar start showing up more often. Barrett brings coffee, sits on the couch and listens. Gunnar brings food, makes her eat, doesn't leave until she finishes. Sometimes other brothers from the chapter show up. Men with road-worn faces and quiet eyes. They don't talk much, just listen. Lainey realizes something during those sessions. Ridge built a family out of broken people. Veterans, addicts, men who came back from war and couldn't find their place. He gave them belonging, the same way he gave her belonging after her father died. And now they're returning the favor. Showing up. Being present, supporting her the way Ridge supported them. 1 week before the recital, Lainey plays through the entire concerto without stopping. Ridge sits on the couch, arms crossed, face unreadable. She plays all 3 movements, 23 minutes of music. Not perfect, but good, really good. When she finishes, the apartment is silent. Ridge stands, walks to the keyboard. Again, she looks at him. I just played the whole thing. And now you're going to do it again. But this time I want you to play it like you mean it, like it matters. It does matter. Then show me. She plays it again. This time something breaks open in her. The notes aren't just notes anymore. They're emotion. They're story. They're every doubt and fear and moment of rage she's carried for the past 6 weeks. They're her father, her grandmother, Ridge's sacrifice. They're the way Ashcroft looked at her and decided she didn't belong. They're proof. When she finishes, her hands are shaking. Ridge nods. That's it. That's what I've been waiting for. He stands. You're ready. I don't feel ready. You never will. That's not how this works. You just have to trust that the work you've done is enough. He walks to the door. Stops. Lainey. Yeah. When you walk out on that stage next week, I want you to remember something. You're not playing to prove anything to Ashcroft. You're not playing to save your scholarship. Then what am I playing for? Ridge meets her eyes. You're playing because you can, because you have a gift, and because the world needs to hear what you have to say. He opens the door. Make them listen. He leaves. Lainey sits at the keyboard for a long time. Then she pulls out her phone, sends a text to the conservatory registrar. Change to recital program, replacing Chopin Nocturne with Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 3. She hits send before she can second-guess herself. 3 minutes later, her phone rings. Dean Ashcroft. Lainey doesn't answer. She just sits at the keyboard, and she plays. The spring recital is scheduled for Thursday, April 24th. 7 p.m., Whitmore Conservatory's main performance hall. The hall is over 100 years old. Seats 600. Tonight it's full. Parents arrive early, the kind of parents who arrive early to everything. They wear their wealth casually. Tailored suits, designer dresses, jewelry that catches the light. They file into rows of velvet seats, exchange pleasantries, comment on the program. Nobody mentions the last-minute change to the lineup. Delaney Rourke, originally listed for Chopin Nocturne in E-flat major, now listed for Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 3 in D minor. The program director had tried calling Laney 3 times after receiving the change notification. Laney hadn't answered. At 6:45, the back doors of the hall open. 7 men walk in. They move in a line, deliberate, unhurried. Ridge leads, silver beard, leather vest, Hell's Angels patch visible on his back. Behind him, Barrett, Gunner, 4 other brothers from the chapter, 7 bikers in a room full of silk and pearls. The whispers start immediately. Heads turn, eyes widen. A woman in the second row touches her husband's arm. He leans in. She whispers something. His eyebrows rise. The bikers walk to the back row. File in. Sit. Ridge folds his hands in his lap. The others do the same. They wait. Near the front of the hall, Dean Vivian Ashcroft stands beside the program table. She's wearing a navy suit, hair perfect, expression controlled. She sees the bikers enter. Her jaw tightens. She walks to the conservatory director, Dr. Miriam Caldwell. Leans in, says something quiet. Dr. Caldwell glances at the back row, nods, says something back. Ashcroft's face doesn't change, but her hands grip the program she's holding just a fraction tighter. Backstage, Laney stands in the green room. She's 4th in the program, 3 students before her. She's wearing black pants, white shirt, simple, clean. Her hands are cold. She's run through the concerto in her head 100 times since this morning. Every passage, every phrase, every difficult section. She knows it. She's ready. But her hands are still cold. There's a knock on the door. 5 minutes, Miss Rourke. Thank you. She walks to the mirror, looks at herself, 22 years old, dark hair pulled back. No makeup beyond what's necessary for stage lights. She looks like her father. Everyone always said so. Same eyes, same jawline, same quiet intensity. Her father, who died when she was 4, who she barely remembers, who Ridge raised her to honor. She takes a breath, another. Then she walks to the stage entrance. The first 3 performances pass in a blur. A violin piece, perfectly executed, polite applause. A vocal performance. Soprano, beautiful tone, warmer applause. A cello solo, technical, impressive. Standing ovation from the first few rows. Then it's Laney's turn. Her name is called. She walks onto the stage. The lights are bright, hot. She can't see past the first few rows, but she knows Ridge is there, back row, hands folded, watching. She walks to the piano, a Steinway Model D, 9 feet of polished black perfection. She adjusts the bench, sits, positions her hands over the keys, and then she speaks. I'd like to announce a change to tonight's program. Her voice carries, clear, steady. The hall goes quiet. I'll be performing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 3 in D minor. For 3 seconds, there is absolute silence. Then the whispers start. Audible, immediate, a gasp from somewhere in the front rows. A mother's hand covering her mouth. Near the side of the stage, the program director's eyes widen. She looks at her clipboard. Back at Laney, her mouth opens. In the front section, a faculty member shakes his head. Once, almost imperceptibly. And in the back row, Ridge sits absolutely still. Laney doesn't wait for permission. She begins to play. The opening of the Rachmaninoff Third is deceptive. It sounds almost simple at first. A melody that wanders, searches, questions. But underneath that simplicity is architecture, complexity, danger. Laney's hands move. The notes fill the hall. For the first minute, the room is frozen. People don't know how to react. This wasn't what was listed. This wasn't what they expected. But by the second minute, something shifts. The audience begins to understand that what they're hearing isn't just competent, it's extraordinary. Laney plays the first movement with surgical precision. Every note clean, every phrase shaped, the dynamics building and releasing like breath. She's not just playing the notes, she's inhabiting them. Faculty members lean forward, the skepticism in their faces beginning to crack. Parents stop their private conversations. Even the students backstage waiting for their own performances gather in the wings to listen. The first movement ends. A pause. Then the second movement begins. This is the soul of the concerto, the slow section, the part that isn't about technique. It's about understanding, about feeling, about grief and memory and beauty that exists only because it's temporary. Laney plays it the way Ridge taught her, not with her hands, with everything else. She thinks about her father, about the piano with the missing keys, about learning to hear what wasn't there. She thinks about Ridge, about 35 years of silence, about sacrifice that ran so deep it became invisible. She plays all of it, and the room hears it. A woman in the third row begins crying, quietly. She doesn't know why, just that the music is reaching something in her that words can't touch. A faculty professor presses his hand flat against his chest, like he's checking his heartbeat, making sure it's still there. In the back row, Barrett's eyes are closed. His face is soft. This is the first time he's heard complete beauty since Iraq, since the explosions, since the silence that came after. The second movement ends. Another pause. Then the third movement. This is the beast, the section that destroys professional pianists. That requires not just skill, but something beyond skill, something that can't be taught. Laney's hands move faster. The notes cascade, overlap, build momentum like a train picking up speed. She's 30 seconds into the movement when it happens. The section Ridge drilled her on for weeks. The parallel runs, the passage that requires both hands to move in perfect synchronization at impossible speed. Her left hand jumps and lands wrong, just slightly, a fraction of a second late. Two notes blur together, the rhythm stutters. For the space of a heartbeat, the entire structure of the phrase hangs in the air. Someone in the audience exhales, sharp, audible. In the front section, Dean Ashcroft's chin comes up, her eyes sharp, watching. In the back row, Ridge doesn't move. Laney feels the mistake like a physical blow. Her brain screams at her to stop, to start over, to apologize. But she doesn't stop. She does what Ridge taught her. She keeps going. She pushes through the mistake, finds the rhythm again, locks back into the phrase, and something happens. The mistake doesn't break the music. It transforms it. Because Laney doesn't try to hide what happened. She doesn't pretend it was perfect. She acknowledges it, absorbs it, and then she plays the next phrase with even more intensity, more conviction, like she's saying, yes, I stumbled, but I'm still here, still fighting, still playing. The rest of the movement unfolds like thunder. Her hands blur. The notes build. The momentum becomes unstoppable. She plays the final runs with everything she has. And then the last chord. She holds it, lets it ring, releases. For 3 full seconds, the hall is silent. Not the uncertain silence from before. The stunned silence that comes when people have witnessed something they weren't prepared for. Then the applause begins. It starts in the back row, Ridge and the brothers, clapping like their hands are weapons. Then it spreads. The faculty section, the parents, the students. Within 5 seconds, it's a standing ovation. Not polite, not measured. Raw, involuntary, complete. People are on their feet, clapping, some shouting, a few crying. The performance wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in a room that had spent decades worshiping perfection, real was something they'd forgotten how to recognize. Laney stands, turns to the audience. The lights are still too bright to see clearly, but she knows Ridge is there. She can feel it. She bows. The applause builds, and then a voice cuts through it, clear, controlled, amplified. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention. Dean Vivian Ashcroft steps forward from the side of the stage. She's holding a microphone. Her expression is composed, professional. The applause falters, fades. People sit. The hall goes quiet. Ashcroft stands at the edge of the stage, looks out at the audience. That was indeed a remarkable performance, she says. Her voice is warm, measured. However, I must inform you that the conservatory has become aware of a potential issue regarding Miss Rourke's preparation for tonight's recital. The room freezes. Lainey stands at the piano, her hands at her sides. It has come to our attention, Ashcroft continues, that Miss Rourke may have received external coaching from an individual with professional credentials. As you know, Whitmore's scholarship program has very clear policies regarding undisclosed outside instruction. Whispers ripple through the audience. While we certainly appreciate Miss Rourke's obvious talent, we must maintain the integrity of our program. As such, her scholarship status will be under review, pending a formal investigation into this matter. Ashcroft lowers the microphone, looks at Lainey. The message is clear. You played well, but you broke the rules, and rules matter more than talent. The hall is silent. Parents look at each other. Faculty members shift in their seats. In the back row, Ridge's hands tighten. Barrett puts a hand on his arm, holds him in place. Lainey stands on the stage. Every eye in the room is on her. She can leave, walk off, let this happen, or she can fight. For 18 years, Ridge taught her how to survive, how to push through pain, how to show up even when the world didn't want you there. But he also taught her something else. He taught her that some things are worth fighting for. Lainey walks to the microphone. Ashcroft hands it to her. There's surprise in her eyes. She wasn't expecting this. Lainey faces the audience. Dean Ashcroft is right, she says. Her voice is steady, clear. I did receive help preparing for this performance from my grandfather, Warren Rourke. She points to the back row. Every head turns. Ridge sits perfectly still. My grandfather raised me, Lainey continues, after my father died when I was 4 years old. He worked 2 jobs, paid for everything I needed, never missed a single performance, not one. From elementary school showcases to tonight. She pauses. And yes, he helped me practice. The same way any grandfather would help any granddaughter with something difficult. He sat with me. He listened. He offered advice. Her voice gets stronger. Dean Ashcroft seems to believe that makes me a cheater, that having a grandfather who cares about me is somehow unfair. A few people in the audience shift, uncomfortable. But here's what Dean Ashcroft didn't mention. My grandfather didn't just help me, he taught me, and he was qualified to teach me. She looks at Ashcroft. Because my grandfather graduated from this conservatory, class of 1987, summa cum laude. He was offered a spot with the Berlin Philharmonic, one of the highest honors in classical music. The whispers become gasps. He walked away from that opportunity, not because he wasn't good enough, but because his sister, my grandmother, was killed by a drunk driver. And her son, my father, was 6 years old and had nobody else. Lainey's voice cracks, just slightly. So my grandfather gave up music, gave up his career, gave up everything he'd worked for, and he raised my father. She takes a breath. And then my father died, same way, drunk driver, wrong place, wrong time, and my grandfather raised me. Tears are streaming down faces in the audience now. Even people who came in skeptical are crying. So yes, I had help. I had a grandfather who sacrificed everything twice so that I could stand here tonight. And if Dean Ashcroft thinks that's grounds to revoke my scholarship, then this institution doesn't deserve students like me. The hall erupts, not in applause, in agreement. People are standing, shouting support. The faculty section is conflicted. Some look angry, others look moved. Ashcroft stands frozen, and then Ridge stands. He doesn't say anything. He just walks down the aisle. The hall watches him. This big man in leather and dust, walking toward the stage with the same deliberate calm he brings to everything. He reaches the stage, climbs the steps, walks to Lainey. You did good, he says quietly, just to her. Then he turns to the audience. May I, he asks, gesturing to the piano. Dr. Caldwell, the conservatory director, stands. She's been silent through all of this, processing. Please, she says. Ridge walks to the piano, sits on the bench. He hasn't sat at a performance piano in 35 years. His hands hover over the keys, and then he plays. The same piece, Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto Number 3. But what comes out of that piano is something else entirely. Ridge doesn't just play the notes. He speaks them. Every phrase carries weight. Every passage tells a story. This is what happens when someone plays a piece not to prove they can, but because they need to. He plays it the way it sounds in the composer's imagination. In the place beyond technique, beyond skill, the place where music becomes truth. He plays 35 years of silence, every missed performance, every moment he stood in the back row watching other people do what he'd given up. He plays his sister, his nephew, his granddaughter. He plays sacrifice and choice and love that runs deeper than ambition. The first movement ends. People are crying openly now. Not just a few, most of the audience. The second movement is devastating. It sounds like grief made beautiful, like memory that hurts and heals at the same time. Even the faculty members who came in judgmental are broken now. This isn't just good playing, this is virtuosity, the kind that maybe comes along once in a generation. The third movement arrives. Ridge's hands move like they never forgot, like 35 years was just a pause, not an ending. He plays the beast with effortless power. The parallel runs that destroyed Laney come out of his hands like they're simple, natural. He finishes. The final chord rings out. Silence. Then applause that shakes the walls. Everyone is standing. Everyone is clapping. The ovation goes on for 2 full minutes. Ridge sits at the piano, head slightly bowed, hands resting on the keys. When the applause finally fades, he stands, faces the audience. "My name is Warren Rourke," he says. His voice carries without a microphone. Whitmore Conservatory class of 1987. In the second row, an older man stands, slowly, like he's seeing a ghost. Professor Leonard Whitlock, retired for 11 years, invited tonight as a guest by a former student. "Warren?" His voice shakes. "Warren Rourke." Ridge sees him. Recognition flashes across his face. "Professor Whitlock, we looked for you for years after you left the Berlin program. We thought..." He can't finish the sentence. Ridge nods. "I know." Someone in the audience asks the question everyone is thinking. "Why did you leave?" Ridge is quiet for a moment, then he tells them. "November 1989, 3 weeks before I was scheduled to leave for Berlin. My younger sister was killed by a drunk driver. She left behind a 6-year-old son, my nephew." His voice is steady, factual. "I was the only family he had, so I walked away from the tour, came back here, raised him." He looks at Laney. "The boy grew up, became a good man, had a daughter, my granddaughter. Then he died, same way his mother died." The room is completely silent. "So I raised her, just like I raised him." He walks to where Laney is standing, puts a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't quit music because I failed. I quit because something mattered more." He looks out at the audience. "My granddaughter asked me to help her prepare for tonight. As family, not as a coach, not as a professional, as her grandfather." His eyes find Ashcroft. "If you want to call that a violation, that's your choice. But understand what you're really saying. You're saying that family support is only acceptable if that family looks the way you think it should, if they come from the background you approve of." The words land like hammer strikes. "You look at me and see a biker, someone who doesn't belong. You look at my granddaughter and see the same thing." He takes a step forward. "But we've both earned the right to be here. Her through talent and work. Me through history." He pauses. "So you want to revoke her scholarship? You want to punish her for having a grandfather who knows music, for having family that supports her?" He lets the question hang. "Then do it. But make sure everyone knows exactly why." The hall is frozen. Then Dr. Miriam Caldwell stands. She walks to the stage, takes the microphone. "Mr. Rourke," she says, "Professor Whitlock has just reminded me of something. Your file from 1987. I remember hearing about you when I joined the faculty in 1992. They called you the greatest student this conservatory ever produced." She looks at Ashcroft. "What I just witnessed confirms that assessment." She turns to the audience. "The question before us is simple. Did Miss Rourke receive undisclosed professional coaching, or did she receive what any student with a musically trained family member might receive: guidance, support, familial mentorship? She looks at Lainey. After hearing both performances tonight, I believe the answer is clear. What Miss Rourke displayed on this stage was her own talent, her own work, her own voice. She pauses. The fact that her grandfather, who happens to be a Whitmore alumnus of extraordinary distinction, supported her in that work is not a violation. It's a blessing. She looks at Ashcroft. Dean Ashcroft, do you have evidence of formal coaching, of payment, of anything beyond a grandfather helping his granddaughter? Ashcroft's face is carefully controlled, but something behind her eyes has shifted. No, she says quietly. Then the matter is closed. Effective immediately, I am dismissing any investigation into Miss Rourke's scholarship status. Dr. Caldwell's voice gets stronger. Furthermore, after tonight's performance, I am recommending that Miss Rourke's scholarship be upgraded to full merit recognition, the highest honor we can bestow. The applause is immediate, thunderous. Lainey's knees almost buckle. Ridge's hand on her shoulder steadies her. Ashcroft stands at the edge of the stage. Alone, for 35 years she has maintained control, maintained standards, built walls to protect herself from the pain of her own rejection. And in one night those walls have crumbled. She walks to Lainey. Everyone watches. Miss Rourke, she says. Her voice is quiet, private, but the hall is silent enough that people can hear. I owe you an apology. Lainey doesn't speak. I looked at you and made assumptions about your background, about your capabilities, about what you deserved. Ashcroft's composure cracks, just slightly. I was wrong. She takes a breath. 46 years ago, I auditioned for Juilliard. I was told I had technical proficiency but lacked refinement. I was told that perhaps a school with less demanding standards might be more appropriate. Her hands are shaking now. They rejected me because my father worked in a factory, because I didn't come from the right kind of family, because I didn't fit their image of what a classical musician should look like. Tears are forming in her eyes. I spent the next 4 decades trying to prove them wrong, building walls, enforcing standards, becoming everything they said I wasn't refined enough to be. She looks at Lainey, and in the process I became exactly what hurt me. I became the person who looks at others and decides they don't belong. She extends her hand. I'm sorry. Lainey looks at the hand, then at Ashcroft's face. She sees it now, the pain underneath the control, the wound that never healed. Lainey takes her hand. I forgive you, she says, but don't ever look at someone's family and think you know their worth. Ashcroft nods, crying now. The handshake breaks. The hall erupts in applause one more time. 6 months later, winter, December, early evening. The Veterans Center is 20 minutes outside of town. Single-story building, parking lot that needs repaving. Sign out front that's seen better days. Inside a large room that used to be a cafeteria. Now it's a community space. Folding chairs, tables, coffee maker in the corner that's always on. And in the center of the room, a piano. Not a Steinway, not a grand, just an old upright. Donated. Out of tune. But it works. Ridge sits at the bench. 2 students in front of him. Both veterans. Both struggling with PTSD. Both learning that music can speak what words can't. He's teaching them the basics, scales, simple melodies, the foundation. He comes twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 7 to 9. Barrett brings the van when instruments need to be moved. Gunnar and 3 other brothers show up to help unload, to sit in the back and listen, to be present. The room is full tonight, 20 people, some playing, some listening, some just sitting. Music fills the space, imperfect, hesitant, but real. The door opens. Lainey walks in. She's holding 2 coffee cups, hands one to Ridge during a break. How's it going? She asks. Good. Marcus just played through his first complete piece. Took him 6 weeks. That's amazing. He worked hard. Lainey sits on a folding chair, watches Ridge teach. He's patient now in a way he wasn't with her. Gentler, like teaching these veterans has healed something in him too. After an hour, the session ends. People pack up, say their goodbyes. Ridge and Laney are alone in the room. You're playing at Whitmore next week, Ridge says. It's not a question. Yeah, faculty showcase. They asked me to play. What are you playing? Chopin, the Nocturne. My choice this time. Ridge smiles. Good. They sit in silence for a moment. You know what I realized, Laney says. What, that recital, when I played the Rachmaninoff, I thought I was playing to prove Ashcroft wrong, to show her I was good enough. And I was wrong. I was playing because you taught me I could, because you gave me permission to treat things. Ridges doesn't respond. You gave up music twice, Laney continues. For Dad, for me, and you never asked for anything back. Didn't need to, but you needed something. You needed music, and you gave it up anyway. Ridge looks at the old piano. I didn't give it up, he says quietly. I just played a different song. What do you mean? Music isn't just what you play on a piano. It's what you do when nobody's watching. It's the rhythm you bring to daily life. The harmony you create with people around you. He looks at her. I stopped playing Rachmaninoff, but I spent 35 years playing a different kind of music. Raising you, raising your father, building a family out of broken pieces. He pauses. That's music too. Laney's throat tightens. I never thanked you. Don't need thanks. I do, though. You sacrificed everything so I could have this chance, and I almost wasted it by being too scared to try to. Ridge stands, walks to the piano. You want to know why I really played that night at your recital? Yeah. It wasn't to prove anything to Ashcroft. It wasn't to show off. He touches the keys gently. It was because I needed you to understand something. That giving up doesn't mean you failed. It means you chose something else. Something more important. He looks at her. I chose you and your father, and I would make that choice again every single time. Laney walks to the piano, sits beside him on the bench. Play something with me, she asks. Ridge nods. She positions her hands, right side of the keyboard. He positions his, left side. Together they play. 4 hands, 1 piano. The Chopin Nocturne, the piece that started everything. They play it slowly, carefully, not as a performance, but as a conversation. Ridge's left hand provides foundation, harmony, support. Laney's right hand carries melody, voice, story. Together they create something that neither could make alone. When they finish, Laney leans her head on Ridge's shoulder. Thank you, Gramps. For what? For showing me that real class isn't where you come from. It's what you do when nobody's watching. It's the choices you make when everything's on the line. Ridge puts his arm around her. You did that yourself, kiddo. I just reminded you. They sit there for a long time, in the quiet room, the old piano between them. Outside, Barrett is waiting in the van, engine running, heater on. Gunnar is in the passenger seat, coffee in hand. 2 other brothers sit in back, quiet, patient. They're waiting for Ridge. They've been waiting for him for years, through grief, through silence, through the long road back to music. And they'll keep waiting, because that's what family does. Inside, Ridge and Laney stand. You coming to the showcase next week, Laney asks. Wouldn't miss it. Back row, Ridge smiles. 3rd row, I'm moving up in the world. They walk to the door, turn off the lights. Outside, the December air is cold. Christmas lights strung along the eaves of the building. The parking lot mostly empty. Ridge walks to his bike, Laney to her car. Hey, Gramps, she calls. He turns. I love you. Ridge nods, his eyes soft. Love you too, kiddo. He gets on his bike, starts the engine. The sound is thunder. He rides away, the van following, red tail lights disappearing into the dark. Laney stands in the parking lot and watches them go. She thinks about the metronome, the one that's sitting on her desk at home now, the one with Ridge's name on it. Warren Rourke, summa cum laude, 1987. The man who was good enough for Berlin, who walked away, who chose family over glory, who taught her that real strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, about fighting when the world says you don't belong, about playing the hard piece even when you're scared. She gets in her car, drives home. Tomorrow she'll practice. She'll prepare for the showcase. She'll keep working. But tonight she's just grateful. For the piano with the missing keys that taught her to hear what wasn't there. For the grandfather who gave up everything twice so she could have her chance. For the moment on stage when she stumbled and kept going. For the music that brought them both home. She pulls into her apartment parking lot, looks up at her window. The light is on. She must have left it on this morning. She climbs the stairs, opens the door. The keyboard is waiting. The metronome beside it. She sits at the bench, and she plays. Not for an audience, not for a grade, not to prove anything. Just because she can. Just because someone she loves taught her how. The music fills the small apartment, flows out the window, into the cold December night. Somewhere across town, Ridge is home now, in his garage, working on an engine. He hears the music in his mind, the Rachmaninoff, the Chopin, all the pieces he once played. He doesn't miss it anymore, because he understands now what he didn't at 26. Music isn't about the notes you play. It's about the life you live while playing them. It's about the people you choose, the sacrifices you make, the legacy you leave. He tightens a bolt, wipes his hands on a rag, and he smiles. Because 35 years ago, he walked away from the greatest opportunity of his life, and he'd do it again tomorrow. Not because he doesn't love music, but because he loves something more. The night is cold, the stars are bright, and somewhere in the distance, if you listen carefully, you can hear the sound of a piano. Playing, always playing.